Hey guys, before the video actually starts, I just want to give a huge shout out and huge thanks for Daniel or DQ, a leader from the Pace Morning community, for making all of this possible and making the best day out of my life. I really love this man to bits. Remember, check out his Instagram here and his YouTube channel here. You'll find out more information about him and what he does and how he helps in the investor community and realtors. If you're ever looking to connect with more investors, if you're ever looking to grow your short form video content and network with more agents just like yourself, remember to check out my description below. Book a consultation call with me and my team. We handle all your short form video content, connecting with investors, and hopping on podcast calls just like this. Guys, gals, and realtors, before you even hop on the video, take out a notebook, take out a pen, because this call is really impactful. And it really is really gonna help out not only realtors but also investors. If you're an investor looking to work with more agents, and if you're a realtor looking to work with investors, this call might be the golden nugget for you. So remember, take out your notebook, take out your pen. This full of packed information. Don't remember to leave something in the comments down below. And if you're trying to see more of these videos. Now, without further ado, I don't want to waste your time. But remember, new agents, experienced agents, investors, right? If you're looking to connect, if you're looking to move into building short form video content and looking for a team to do that for you, check out the description below and get in contact with me and my team. And other than that, see you in a short bit. Take care, guys. Welcome to the Your Local Agent Podcast, episode 12. Guys, this is amazing. This is special. I can't really explain my gratitude right now. Um, Today we're invited by the lovely realtors. You can see them in my past few videos by Dejanay, Regina, and we got a returning guest, Daphne. Right? Say hello to Daphne. And
Hello.
and today, I have a very special guest and someone else that's coming as a surprise in a bit. But here is Daniel. Well, you can sort of introduce yourself, Daniel, to the audience.
How's it going, man? My name is Daniel Quijano. Been an investor for a couple of years now. Before I got into investing, I was doing business consulting, doing government contracts, helping, different types of businesses in all different industries. Got into real estate actually around the pandemic when all of the clients that I was supposed to be servicing from a consulting side were forced to shut down. And it really impressed me the opportunity that existed in real estate from an investing standpoint. I learned really quickly that investing, if you wanted to do it well and at scale, isn't something that you should try to do alone. And so I was fortunate to stumble across different communities that existed in this space and connect with them. And it's just been a really interesting ride. I've been fortunate to make some really good friends who are doing a lot of really special things in this space. And I think part of that includes bridging the gap that exists or has existed in the past between investors and real estate agents. Because the reality is we're serving two different sides of the same coin. So there's a lot of value in collaborating when we can figure out how to get out of our own way and start collaborating together. And that's why this conversation really excites me.
Awesome. And you guys, realtors, you guys actually introduce yourselves and of course Daphne. We're gonna start from Daphne to Regina and then Dejanay. Sound cool?
Yeah, hey, I'm Daphne. I am pretty much I've came on before as like a presenter. But I do a lot of wholesale. I actually know, Alexis, and I just ran a deal with Drew. I think you know Drew too, the kind of a few different people on the creative side. Um yeah, so I saw that you were going to be on and figured it'd be a good opportunity to meet you and jumped in. So
Love it.
Yeah, hi, my name is Regina. I am a realtor in Southern California, primarily service the Inland Empire and surrounding cities. I've been a realtor for a little under 2 years, and I'm really excited to network and meet people because I eventually want to transition fully over to the investment side of real estate.
Awesome. Now, lastly,
Okay, my name is Dejanay. I'm a realtor in Maryland, and I look forward to working with people and also transforming over to the investing side, like Regina said. And I've primarily been licensed for about 2 years now.
how can real estate agents and investors build a mutually beneficial partnership, and what are the key factors for successful collaboration?
That's a great question. I think that the first thing you want to do is you want to be intentional. You want to decide that you want to do that. right? I think that there's, in my experience, two ways to collaborate with an investor. Do what you're doing with your clients, and then when you come across an investor that's interested in collaborating on a deal, you are open to that conversation and you collaborate with them. I think another way is to start finding the local investors in your market, people who are operating and doing deals at scale, and then figuring out how to collaborate with them. I think those two differentiations, excuse me, are important because one, I know a lot of people who spend their entire day calling listed properties that are, 90 days or 120 days on the market, and nothing's happening with them. And they'll call the agents, and a lot of times those agents are really, really, I guess, hesitant to work with the investor. And you kind of hear the tone when they're calling them. They're like, "Hey, calling about this property," and it's just they get that wall that gets put up right away. And so I think that makes it tough. So I think just out of the gate, being open minded. If you change nothing you do, just being open minded to the conversation and seeing what they have to offer is a great start. But I think there's actually something powerful when you get intentional, because there's people who are out here prospecting and finding opportunities and locking up contracts every single day. And if they have those properties under contract, they're looking to wholesale those. Some of those deals could be what's called a wholesale rather than a wholesale, right? So rather than me selling a property, I have a property that we're working right now. It's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's a decent property. It's in decent condition. And, but the issue is it's a little bit tight to sell to another investor, right? So what are our options? We can take it down creatively. There's all the things we can do. One amazing option would be, if I had an agent that I was working with in Tulsa, would just be to contact them and say, "Hey, how about you walk this thing for me? Tell me what you think you could get for this thing on a listing." And then rather than going the traditional route of finding an investor, we'll just take it down and then we'll list it with the agent on the market, right? So now you're getting listings from investors that you didn't think would have come in the first place. So I think being intentional, deciding what you want to do, and being open to the conversation are probably the best approaches to get started.
On to my next question is, what types of properties do investors typically look for? And how can real estate agents help them identify the best opportunities? Do the investors go for foreclosures, expired listings? Like, what type of properties do investors ideally look for?
Yeah, I think that's going to depend on the investor. Everybody has a different business model and a different approach to how they take down or look for deals. So I think you're going to span the spectrum. I think ultimately most investors are looking for a couple of things, and it's all founded in what? It's in pain, motivation. So that's why they're looking for distressed properties a lot of the time, because distressed properties usually come with distressed sellers in some form or fashion. Now, maybe they're distressed because of a foreclosure or because of a death in the family, or maybe they just inherited a property, or they're tired landlords and they have stuff they don't want to deal with. So all of those things will be things that they work with, but ultimately most investors are looking for problems to solve. If they're a good investor and they know what they're doing, they're looking for a problem to solve. Now, that could be because somebody inherited a property that they don't know what to do with, or it could be because there's a decent property that just has no equity whatsoever and it's been sitting on the market and they can't sell it. That's not a distressed property, but it is a distressed situation. An investor with the right circumstances and resources can solve both of those problems.
And on to my next one is, what are some misconceptions that realtors have when considering working with investors, and how can they overcome these misconceptions?
Well, that's an amazing question. I think there's a couple. I think the more common ones are lack of education, right? And I say this respectfully because a lot of us, it doesn't matter what the topic is, our opinion on something usually comes from our exposure to that thing, right? So if you're an agent who's only worked with agents who work traditional real estate and have been told that wholesaling's a scam or illegal, well, then what are you going to do? When a wholesaler calls you, you're going to think that they're scamming people. Oh, you're just trying to rip people off. I don't want to work with you. And you actually think you're doing something positive by doing that. Well, are you doing something positive, or are you acting off of bad information? Obviously, being in the industry, we know it's bad information, but they don't know that. So I think that that's one of the biggest issues, is just wrong information, lack of education and understanding of the options that are out there. And that's a little bit tough to overcome, because if you're calling me and I don't know you, you're a stranger, and you don't sound like you have a real estate license, and you're trying to sell me on something that my broker told me is a scam, I'm probably going to believe my broker over believing you, right? And that's an understandable thing to do. So the question is, how do I overcome that? I think being able to, as the investor, sound like you know what you're talking about, don't approach conversations in a combative fashion, but in a collaborative fashion. I think those things are good tools from an investor side. But from an agent, simply what I would say is just don't write something off before you know for sure. Just be willing to accept the fact that the world's full of information we weren't exposed to. So just allow yourself to be exposed to that information and vet it before you write it off as a scam or something that's just not worth your time, because it may be.
What numbers do investors usually look for in a property, and how can real estate agents assist them evaluating potential deals?
Are you talking about like comping,
Yeah,
underwriting?
like comps, and then there's like ROI, like return of investments. Like, are you looking for a 4-year return, 100% 4-year return?
No, so this, I'll be honest with you guys, for all the agents that are watching this, this is a very, very powerful way for you guys to collaborate with investors. Especially if you're in a non-disclosure state, right? Texas, New Mexico, the non-disclosure states out there. I do business in both of those states. I live in New Mexico, and it's tough, right? There are great resources out there that give you some back-end access, but even those aren't in every state. So let's say I'm comping a deal and I'm in Texas and it's in a unique area, meaning it's a little bit rural, or maybe it's by a historic district, or something's happening in that area that I don't understand because I'm not boots on the ground. You're a licensed agent that is boots on the ground, and you have access to the MLS. I cannot count how many times we've had to underwrite a deal and just sit there like, this one's tough, right? I don't really know where to go with this. And so, I think comping is as much of an art as is a science. And so we just kind of go the artistic route. Or what we'll have to do is we'll pre-shop it to buyers that we have relationships with and say, hey, if we get this thing under contract, where would you need to be? And we let them tell us where we need to be. Why am I doing all that guessing? Well, because I don't have the amazing resource that a real estate agent has, which is access to the data that you get from the MLS, right? So as an agent, you guys have a superpower, especially in non-disclosure states, if you're working with investors.
How can real estate agents leverage their market knowledge, their MLS access, and negotiate skills to provide value to investors?
Yeah. No, I think that's it. And if you really want to leverage that, I think what's every deal founded on, right? It's all leverage and negotiation. What value are you bringing to the table? What value am I bringing to the table? Guys, investors, a lot of them are prospecting their butts off. Like they spend their entire business prospecting, pulling lists, skip tracing those lists. They have VAs. They have all of these steps they get into place to find copious amounts of opportunity. I can't speak for all real estate agents, but if you're a real estate agent, ask yourself honestly, how much time every single day or every single week do you spend prospecting for opportunities? My guess is most investors out prospect agents. What does that mean? That's a powerful collaboration because they're doing that dirty work. Well, what do you have? So now they have something that they can bring to the table as far as leverage. What do you have? Well, you have market knowledge, especially for virtual investors. You have access to that MLS. And so I think if you're going to be able to create a good relationship, then the question is, what value do you bring? What value do I bring? And how can we collaborate on that? It's really that simple.
What are the benefits of having an investor-friendly real estate agent? And how can investors find such agents?
I'm going to switch this up a little bit.
Mhm.
Because the question that I would ask, right, and I'm going to throw this out as a challenge because your goal here is to work with agents, right? We have some amazing agents on the screen right now. The question I would ask is if you're an agent and you're looking to add something to your business model, you don't have to change it, but just add to it. My question would be, rather than creating a scenario where investors can find you, why don't you put together opportunities for you to start finding investors, right? So I would ask that same question back to the agents. What are you guys going to do as agents if you're open to this conversation, or what can you do to really just establish those relationships? I think that's something to be intentional about. I wouldn't wait for them to come to you. That's just my opinion. Not a licensed agent. Do what you want, but that would be my advice. To answer your question, I would say that there's a couple great things. One, investors are going to be finding agents if they do agent outreach. right? Agent outreach has been a process that's been started. Obviously, some of the greatest people in the investment space started this years ago. Pace jumped on that because a good friend of his has been the advocate of these agent investor relationships for a long time. If you guys know Jamil, this guy is the godfather and creator of this, I think. Pace jumped on board with the Elephant Challenge and created these challenges. What are these challenges founded on? They're founded on creating scenarios where agent or investors can reach out to agents and say, hey, you have a property that hasn't sold for 4 months. Sometimes we might not want to admit it as salespeople, because agents are salespeople as well as professionals. We don't want to admit that if it's been there for 4 months, something's not going right. Right? We want to put our head in the stand and act like it's okay. But at the end of the day, if it's been sitting there for 4 months, something's not going right. Usually, if you haven't gotten an offer or a number of offers on that property within 30 days, there's a problem. Right? And so if you have somebody willing to help you, why wouldn't you take that help? So the agents are going to be finding them through the agent outreach, reaching out in those channels. You can go to local RIAs, go to local events. I've heard of investors that'll go to open houses and meet with agents in that way. I think there's a lot of ways that you can do it. I think you just got to be willing to do the work.
How can real estate agents and investors have an open communication throughout their partnership? What I'm trying to say is that should the realtors send properties that they see that are not performing over to the investor for the investor to look over? So let's say the traditional way is not working. Should the realtor just pass on those properties to the investor and have that like an open communication, or how do you recommend the realtor and the investors to have a communication between each other?
Yeah, well, I mean, the question is, why wouldn't you, right? There's a phrase that's out there that says your network is your net worth. Well, when you're working with other agents, you're expanding your network. When you're working with investors, you're expanding your network as well. So if I'm a listing agent and I'm listing my property, obviously my goal is to get highest and best. But sometimes highest and best isn't the best thing for that circumstance, right? I'll give you an example. There has been deals that I've worked that we're working with investors where I have been willing to take less money to sell to this person than I would to sell to this person. This person's offering me $5,000 more than this person, but I want to sell to person A. Why? Because that $5,000 is worth the relationship. Sometimes there's value in cultivating a powerful relationship in business. And I think that's the same case with agents as well. So if I'm a listing agent, I'm going to put it out there. I may not take the investor's offer, but why would I not put it in front of the investor? Because how do I know the investor didn't just get off the phone with the seller 5 minutes ago that said, I will sell you my house, but you need to find me a house that meets this criteria. If you can find this for me within the next 30 days, I will sell because I just want to sell to you and move straight in. I have had countless conversations where that was the situation. Well, if you're an agent, you're including your investors that you're working with in those listings and those emails and just staying in contact with them. I think there'll be collaborations that you never thought would come together that pop up because you're staying in contact.
And Daniel, would you say that majority of real estate agents are missing out on potential deals, or like a potential extra 3 to 4 deals a year just by not working with investors?
I don't think that I would also say 3 to 4 deals a year. I think you could be doing a number of deals a month. I think it comes down to how active you are as an agent, right? If you look at the statistics, not a lot of agents are very active. But for the ones who are, again, you have investors that are doing dozens of deals a month per company, right? So why would you not invest with them? I do think that an agent could very comfortably supplement their income, match their income, or surpass their income by working with investors. It's a fact. There are a number of agents who have completely changed their original model to work with investors entirely because there's just such powerful opportunity there. But here's the thing, right? And this is why I answer the question that way. There's opportunity everywhere. But why is such a small percentage of people successful at the scale that they want to be successful at? It's my opinion that it comes down to a couple of things. One, it's mindset, right? We get this idea in our head. Most of us know that we're not living the lives that we want to live, but we refuse to change the habits that are keeping us where we don't want to be, right? And so a lot of the things that stop us from stepping into the goals we want are just some mindsets that hold us back, which is what I said in the first place, right? One mindset example is agents thinking that investors are, that's a scam, or that's not something I want to do. It's a limited mindset, right? It's lack of education. And that's fine. But here's the thing. even if they hear and start to believe that, okay, maybe this is worth it, they still got to do the work, which comes down to the second part, which is what I told you at the very beginning before you started recording this. I have a huge amount of respect for what you're doing here because you're doing the work. And there's a lot of people twice your age who will not do the work. They'll want the results without being willing to do the work. So I say all that to say this. An agent could transform their business, in my opinion, in pretty much any market if they're willing to work with investors. Why? It's not the investor. It's the fact that they're just expanding their opportunity. They're expanding their reach. The question is, will they? And that's ultimately up to them. But I know it's possible. Did you check your waiting room?
It's no one's joined yet.
Hold on one second. Let me check something. We have a little surprise that we're trying to put together for you.
I'm not getting anybody for this on the waiting room yet.
Howdy.
Oh
I was trying to.
Oh my
There he is.
Oh
Trying
my
to open this
god.
on my computer, but not possible. How you doing, bro?
Oh my god. Hello. Oh my
How
god.
are you?
Good. Oh gosh. Oh god. Ah.
So
Sorry.
Jamil, a second ago, right? I told him about this little surprise, and he started shaking and sending mixed up texts, and then he showed me something on his goal list in a book that he has written down. It's a big long list of goals. Can you show once again what's the number one thing on that list?
My days. On my goals I don't know if you can see it in the first one. It says meet Jamil and Pace Morby on a podcast call. The first
Which is
How
the
fun is
current,
that?
which is the current podcast that he's hosting. Jamil, bro, it means the world that you're willing to hop in on this. So fun fact, somebody from Pace's team had reached out to me and told me about this. I wanted to do it. I mentioned this to you in the text message. So last night, I did throw him a Zoom link to meet with me, and this guy's all dressed up looking fancy. He was standing at his prom, and he took the phone call just to get this set up, right? And it was so impressive to me because I told him that one of the hardest things about being successful at anything is the consistency. And there's people twice his age that won't make that kind of dedication towards what they're trying to do.
For
So,
real.
yeah, I love it. Super inspired.
I'm gonna get mind blown now. Got my little Snoopy cup holder. I mean,
Well,
not
if
cup
you got your
holder.
Snoopy cup, you're good to go. You don't need anything else.
So let's dive in, man.
My first question will be, how can real estate agents and investors build a mutually beneficial partnership, and what are the key factors for a successful collaboration?
Oh, that's a great question. So I want to talk about, first and foremost, what the job of a real estate agent is to their client, right? A real estate agent is a fiduciary, meaning that they owe a responsibility to act in the best interest of their client. And I think a lot of times what ends up happening is real estate agents believe that what's in the best interest of their client is the highest price. And that's not necessarily true, right? Oftentimes what ends up happening is you've got different needs, different circumstances, different life situations that are happening with a client. For instance, let's just say, for instance, somebody is selling a house and it's a hoarder situation, right? Like it is going to require junk removal, cleanup. There's embarrassment. There's so many things going on in this property. It's just not a retail house, right? So of course, a realtor, if they're thinking about the best interest of their client, they're going to present to them options. They're going to say, listen, looking at this house, I think I could get you more money if you clean it, like really clean it, fix it up, and get it financed so it can be financeable. And maybe we can get you more money on the MLS, but that's a risk, right? You actually might not get back the money that you spend in cleaning. You might not get the money that you spend in fixing up the house to make it financeable. This isn't a full renovation. This is just financeable, right? The real estate agent might also say to their client, look, if you clean it and fully remodel it, it might cost you $100,000, but maybe I can get you this much money. Or the real estate agent could say, look, the house is in this situation. It obviously is going to need a cash buyer for somebody to come in and take it right away. I can get you this price for a cash offer. So this just presenting to their client the multitude of options, and then allowing the client to make a decision for themselves on what's the best course of action. So I think that's where the biggest issue happens, is in real estate agents just not thinking through the question and not thinking through what is the best interest, what's in the best interest of my client. Sometimes speed and convenience is in the best interest of your client. Sometimes just ease of transaction is in the best interest of your client. Sometimes renovating the house and getting top dollar is in the best interest of your client if they're more focused on the money. And so I think the way that real estate agents and investors can work together is by agents really asking their clients, what do they value? And then matching the solution for their client that best suits their needs.
On to my next one is, what types of properties do investors typically look for? And how can real estate agents help them identify the best opportunities or how to work with that property?
It's a great question. So I'm gonna move to my whiteboard here, right, and kind of give you an example here. So investors, we're an interesting bunch, right? Because there's only 3 ways to really make money in real estate, right? So an investor, they're always looking for a return on investment. That's the key. That's the goal of an investor, right? They wouldn't be called an investor if they weren't looking for a return. That's the fact, right? So what are ways that investors can get a return? Well, first thing that they can do is they can buy and they can develop the property, right? So they could do a fix and flip. They might bulldoze the property and do a new build, right? Another way that an investor can make money on the property is to hold it, right? So they might hold it and they might get rental income. They could get some depreciation. They get mortgage pay down. This is something that, a lot of the creative finance folks, the sub-2 community, they really, really love this, because when they can get a house and they can get into a house for low money, right? For like a small entry fee, and they can generate rental income. They can get depreciation to help them mitigate taxes, and then have their tenants pay their mortgage down. That's a win-win-win-win, right? Now in this situation, price doesn't even make as much impact to the deal, because if they can cash flow, if they can get depreciation and mortgage pay down, they're going to look at this as an opportunity, right? And the last way that somebody can make money in real estate is to wholesale, right? We can find opportunities and we can sell those opportunities to somebody who's going to do one of these 2 things, right? So that's what we do. Now, in looking at that, right, the best way for an investor to get a return is finding potential, right? In order for a deal to make sense for an investor, the real estate agent has to be able to identify some potential in the property. Either that potential is going to be to add, to do a value add through development, maybe a renovation, or maybe a bulldoze and a new construction, whatever that is, right? Or the potential is going to be in cash flow. So we don't deal with properties that are retail, at least in wholesale. For a wholesaler, we're not dealing with retail properties. A buy and hold investor, however, somebody that's purchasing creatively or maybe purchasing to rent, they may be interested in buying a house that's that's retail ready, as long as they're getting it at a price that allows them to still cash flow and make money based off of their however they're going to rent it.
I'm sorry. I was just.
You're good, dude.
Awesome.
You're good.
Awesome. Now for my next question is, what are some common misconceptions that realtors have when considering working with investors, and how can they overcome these misconceptions?
That's a great question. Well, first, right, one of the biggest misconceptions that realtors have when working with investors is that we're lowballing, that we're trying to pay pennies on the dollar for something that's worth more, right? That you're trying to take equity. And I absolutely disagree with this, because we're not looking at every house, right? What an agent has to understand is that when I'm looking for potential, for instance, right? If I'm looking at the potential of a house, let's just say, for instance, right now, a house needs a full remodel. It's got a sagging foundation. It needs a new roof, needs new electrical, needs new plumbing, needs new kitchen, needs new bathrooms, needs new flooring, everything. The house is a mess. Okay. Now let's just say that if I spend $100,000 renovating this house, that it's worth $200K, right? Does that mean that the house is worth $200K in its current condition? No. A financial risk needs to be taken. Somebody needs to spend money and take a risk by renovating this house. Now, look, I fix and flipped a lot of houses, and I've not won on every one of my fix and flips. I've lost money on fix and flips, right? So that risk hasn't always paid off for me. Sometimes that risk actually comes and bites me in the butt. I lose money. It happens. So what real estate agents need to understand is that when an investor gives you an offer, it's not pennies on the dollar, it's as is value. In this current condition, this is how much somebody would need to buy this property for in order for this purchase to make sense, right? And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that real estate agents have, is that investors are trying to steal houses, or that investors are trying to lowball and offer pennies on the dollar. It's not. I'm willing to pay 100% of as is value. Now, let's understand what as is value means. As is value means that this house needs a lot of work. As is value means that this house needs to be sold to a cash investor that's going to entice me to make a return. As is value means that I can't move into this house. As is value is a house in its current condition, meaning it needs a lot of work, or it's an original condition, and it's not retail ready. So I think that's the biggest misconception. I think one of the second misconceptions that real estate agents have with investors or wholesalers or anybody that's in the business for to profit, right, is that by working with us, that you're inherently not doing a good job for your client or your customer. It's not the fact. In fact, why have these companies like Open Door and OfferPad become so prevalent in today's marketplace? Because people value speed and convenience, because people value having things done. Look, I've bought and sold many vehicles in my life, right? But when I go to CarMax, or when I go to a dealership and I trade my car in, I know that I'm not getting 100% of what that car is worth. I'm very aware that the dealership has to buy my car at a discount and then resell it for more money as a part of what this trade-in process is. And I'm willing to forego $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 on value of my car, maybe even more, for the convenience of just being able to hand over the keys and walk out with a new vehicle today. That's a convenient solution, right? So real estate agents have to understand the value of convenience and not discredit it as it being some kind of way that you're failing your client. In fact, by not presenting this solution to your client, you're failing your client. You're failing your client by not offering them a convenient solution, right? So what real estate agents need to do is they need to take their minds out of the minds of their clients and ask their clients what they want, right? And I think the third and misconception that real estate agents have when they're working with investors is that there's no transparency, is that they're being misled, is that somebody is being taken advantage of. And I think that this goes back to the inherent misconception that people have with their relationship with money. I think that if you feel that making money is inherently bad, then you're not going to appreciate what an investor does as a business, right? But let me tell you this, right? Every business has a wholesale step up. Every business has some form of a wholesale marketplace. When I go to McDonald's and I buy a Big Mac, right, I know that my Big Mac's not worth $8 at the farm. It's not, it's $8 at McDonald's, but how many things had to happen in order for that Big Mac to get in the box, right? The cow had to be raised, fed, nurtured. And then at some point that cow needed to be slaughtered, processed, transported, reprocessed, frozen, packaged, transported. And then it makes its way into a McDonald's, and then it's re-prepared, packaged, and then eaten by Jamil. All those places, all those steps added value to the burger, which is the exact same thing we do as investors, right? If Daniel buys a house subject to, and it needs work for a family to feel comfortable living in there, Daniel's adding value to that house. He's renovating the house. He's making sure that the real estate agent gets paid. He's making sure that the seller gets what they need. He's renovating the house to the standard that he would want to live in, or the standard that he feels the market wants him to renovate it to in order for it to attract a good customer that's going to pay, right? So he's adding value to the marketplace. When I sell a wholesale deal to a fix and flipper, right, I'm taking a house that could be a hoarder situation or completely just dragging down a neighborhood, dragging down a block, because it's attracting all this, negativity. And sometimes these houses that I buy have squatters in them. Sometimes there's people running prostitution rings out of them. Sometimes there's people selling drugs out of them. You think about the types of houses that wholesalers or investors buy, and then the impact of what we do to the community once these houses are repositioned and fixed up and then reintroduced into the inventory, either as a rental or for sale. There's a lot of value that gets added to these communities. There's a lot of value that's getting added to the marketplace. There's a lot of value that's being added to the agent, to the seller. And so when an agent thinks that working with an investor is dishonest, or that the agent or that investors are dishonest, or that investors aren't transparent, they really are just being so myopic. They're not paying attention and looking at the landscape as a whole and just seeing, how is this investor impacting my community, and what questions do I need to ask my investor in order to make sure that I am understanding the full picture of what's going to happen in this deal, so that I can eloquently communicate that to my client.
True. Very true. I like how you mentioned all the misconceptions here, and I'm sorry, Dejane, that you missed this. But it's gonna be posted on the channel for you to watch. All the other questions. Now, what numbers do investors usually look for in a property, and how can real estate agents assist them in evaluating potential deals? Now, I mentioned it could be comps. This could be like ROIs. People are expecting, like, you are expecting an investor's expecting 100% ROI in the next 4 years. Right? What numbers are sort of investors look for?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think in terms of, percentage of ROI over a time frame, and I'll tell you why. Because every use is going to have its own return, right? Like, I just bought a house recently that the return on investment, if I was to flip it, wasn't going to be extremely high, but the timing for me made sense because I needed to purchase it right before the end of the year so that I could get some added depreciation on my taxes. So my return was actually lower taxes, not anything to do with the house or what the house could give me as a flip, right? And so my value, or what that house meant to me with respect to my investment strategy, was different at that time of year. So I think rather than pigeonholing ourselves into like a percentage of ROI, right? I think that you have to look at it circumstance by circumstance by circumstance. You're going to do a buy and hold for a long-term rental. It's going to be a different buy box or a different set of rules than somebody buying for a midterm rental, or somebody buying for a short-term rental, or somebody buying for communal living, like what Pad Split is doing, right? All these different exit strategies are going to allow an investor to do different things or acquire at a different level. And so I think the way that the numbers that I like to look at, first and foremost, right, is understanding as is value and after repair value. I think real estate agents and investors need to really dial that in, right? What is the as is value? And as is value means the house in its current condition. And what kind of buyer is this house going to attract in its current condition? So if as is value means that it has to be a cash buyer because the house is not financeable, the house needs a tremendous amount of work, then that as is value has to accommodate that the cash buyer needs to make a return. That's what as is value is. If the as is value of this house is not financeable by an FHA loan or a VA loan, it needs to be cash or hard money, which means that this cash or hard money buyer is going to be looking to make some kind of return on this house. So what is the highest potential price or the most that I can get my client, knowing that a cash buyer has to buy this? So agents and investors need to understand as is value and then after repair value. Because what bothers me the most is when a realtor says to me, well, this house is worth $200,000. And then they miss the part about once you spend $100,000 renovating the house, it's worth $200,000. It's not in its current condition. Right?
Jamil,
So,
let me ask you a question, man.
Yeah.
Like that part right there, that's the part, and we have to hold back the frustration as investors when we're talking to them, because
Yep.
you got to be smart enough to know that as an investor, right?
Yeah.
You know, how do you bridge that gap? If you're an investor and you're talking to these agents, they already have their mind made up. You might be a scammer, right? Plus, they're an agent. They know what property's worth and you don't. How do you bridge that gap if you're a new investor? Because that is a big wall that they're having to overcome there, especially if you have the experience.
Well, first and foremost, you know, I have talked to thousands of real estate agents across the country, and I've asked thousands of them the same question. Were you ever taught how to comp houses in licensing school? And 100% of the answers were no. Not once, not one agent in one county, in one state, and from one licensing school has ever said that they were taught how to comp houses in licensing school. Not a single one.
Wow.
So how is it that you can then tell a realtor that their fiduciary job is to do the best for their client, yet you haven't even equipped them with understanding or learning how to run those numbers?
It's like going to driver's ed, but never driving a car.
I mean, really though, right? It's ridiculous to me. I've said this in a room full of 2,000 real estate agents before, 2,000 real estate agents. And I've asked, raise your hand if you were taught how to comp in licensing school. Radio silence. Yet this person will die on the hill arguing with me about how much this property is worth once fixed up. Yet they were never taught how to properly appraise value. No. Why are you fighting a battle that you haven't been equipped with the skills to fight? That's the fact. So where did I learn how to compare, how to value homes? Appraiser school. Right? Wow. Why do I tell people about the appraisal rules? Why do I share the appraisal rules with the community of investors out there? Because when you're valuing houses, who determines value? A buyer and an appraiser. A buyer says, this is how much I'm willing to pay. An appraiser says, you're right or wrong. Right? That's essentially what happens.
Yep.
And so when I'm talking to real estate agents and they get the number wrong, I'm never challenging them, making them feel inadequate or feel bad about the fact that they might have made a mistake. In fact, what I typically do is I'll say, look, I looked at this house that you sent me, and you're asking, let's just say for simplicity, $200,000 for it. And I think that this house could be worth $200,000 if the house had a substantial remodel, because I looked at all of the sales in the area over the last 3 months, and I stayed really close to the property. I was within half a mile. I didn't cross any major roads. I stayed in the subdivision, and I looked at houses that were selling at 200K, and every one of them have been fully remodeled. Yet the house that you sent me is a hoarder house. So it could possibly be worth $200,000 with substantial work, but why are you pricing it at 200K right now? Help me understand. Did I miss a comp? Did I miss something? Where did I make an error? And then what happens is the realtor says, yeah, you're right, but the seller really wants 200,000. Ah, got it. So what's happened here is your seller is driving price. And to get the listing, you've now acquiesced to what the seller wants, and you're going to try $200,000. So I think that's totally fair. And I appreciate that you're doing the best that you can for your client. And maybe there's somebody out there that'll pay 200. But this tells me that your seller isn't really motivated, right? Because they're asking for it. And I'm sure you educated your client to tell them that, look at, this is what houses look like that sold for 200K. Your house doesn't look like that. So how much time are you willing to waste here? Tell me when I should follow up with you again. When
Isn't
do you
it
think
also, yeah, like when I think of fiduciary responsibility, isn't it also your fiduciary responsibility to tell them the truth on whether or not the likelihood of they're getting that number?
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. And there's a lot of people that could sue real estate agents for not being honest with them when they have a cockamamie number that they want to list their house for. Look, if they, for instance, ended up going into foreclosure, or if they lost substantial money, or if they mistimed the market because the real estate agent was dishonest about how much the house could sell for, and just in order to get the listing, there's a lot of lawsuits that could happen out there. A ton of them, because it is an absolute violation of a realtor's fiduciary duty not to be honest to a seller about what their house is worth.
Wow.
But what ends up happening is, if we're really being honest about what these appointments look like, it's a listing appointment. The agent got dressed up in a suit. They drove all the way across town. They've got their package. They've got their listing agreement, their documents, and they sit down with the seller, and the seller says, "I want 200,000." You think the agent is going to sit there and say, "Listen, you're wrong. The house is worth 120." Or is the agent going to say, "Let's try 200,000. Just sign the doc. Just sign the listing. Just sign the listing agreement." So what ends up happening? Okay. Months pass. Seller gets frustrated. Agent knows. The agent knows. They're just waiting out the seller. They're waiting out the seller. They're waiting out the seller to get motivated enough to come to terms with what the actual price is that this house needs to be priced at in order for it to trade. That's it. It's a waiting game at that point.
Okay. That's a very lot of information right
It's
there.
a lot. And listen, I'm going to get a ton of hate mail from people about it. I'm not expecting that a lot of folks are going to be because listen, the truth hurts. And it's fact, because look, I'm friends with the nation's best agents, like Jason Mitchell. Okay. He's the #1 realtor in the United States. He sells more houses by volume and more dollar value than anybody in the country. Anybody in the country. He has me speaking on his stage to talk to 3,000 real estate agents into sense. He's like, come speak sense into these people. You tell me when did a wholesaler have to come onto a stage to speak sense to 2,000, 3,000 real estate agents? What world are we living in?
Wow.
Right? When that ever has become the level of hey, real estate agents, listen to this wholesaler. Gosh, that things have changed. And it's because the market has changed. It's because we have to get honest about what's actually happening in the market. We have to get honest with our clients, and we have to get honest about numbers. Right? Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that every investor and every wholesaler has been the squeakiest clean, most amazing human beings out there. It's not true. There's a lot that my industry has to work on. There's a lot that investors have to work on. But I think that if we can all come together in honesty, and if we all have the spirit of the deal in our heart, if we all have the spirit of service to help the customer, to help the client get the most money that they can, or solve their problem in the fastest, best way possible to their benefit. And if we all work in that spirit, then I think that the collaborative nature of our businesses is so powerful. Last thing before I leave. Monique Walker, again, she's one of Arizona's most celebrated real estate agents for her volume, her years in the business, and just her honesty to her customers and clients. Right? Every listing appointment she's on, she presents to the seller. Here's where I think your house trades cash. Here's where I think your house trades in its current condition but financeable. And here's where I think your house trades if you do a stand-up, bang-up remodel on it. Make your choice. And by being able to present it in that way, she never has a seller say, why did this wholesaler make money on my house? She never has a seller say, why didn't you help me get more money for my house? When it makes sense, she renovates the house with the seller and sells it for top dollar. When it makes sense, she fixes the house up and gets the whatever she can get in a financed offer. And when it makes sense, I'm the buyer.
Thank you, Jamil. And
Absolutely.
thank you for everything. Now, realtors, if you guys have any questions, guys, don't be afraid to ask. Right, this is your time to shine.
And so my question would be, as a new agent who doesn't have all the experience, but wants to work with investors, what is something that they can do to kind of gain that trustworthiness and that, reputation? Or what tips do you have for a new agent trying to get into the field when they don't have the history or the sales to back it up?
Are you directing the question to me, right, Regina?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Happy to answer that. So, the thing about real estate agents, I think, that are brand new, that is just beautiful, is that you haven't been beaten up for a decade. So you've got all this fresh energy. You're ready to just take the world by storm. And I love that. I love just how enthusiastic a new real estate agent that has a blue ocean of opportunity in front of them behaves, and how and what that brings to a relationship. And so, I would lean into that enthusiasm. I would lean into that energy. I would lean into it, but also know that all of those things that you mentioned are going to happen, and they're going to chip away at your enthusiasm. They're going to chip away at your energy, because every time somebody says you're crazy, every time somebody says not a chance, every time somebody says my sellers will never accept that, it's just another opportunity for you to keep going. It's just a no for now, not a no forever. Right. And I think knowing that, I'd say one of the things that real estate agents that I've worked with that are investor friendly have made a tremendous amount of money on is not taking anything personal. So when a realtor rejects your offer and scolds you, which it'll happen, okay, they reject your offer and then they scold you. Instead of getting offended by it or taking offense by it, or feeling like this agent never wants to talk to you again, let that roll off your back. And in 2 or 3 weeks, reach back out to that agent and say, has anything changed? I'm sorry. I know last time we talked, it didn't seem like you were interested in working with us, but I noticed the house is still available. It's been a month. Has anything changed in the mind of your seller or in your perception of where this house will sell? Like not being offendable. Not being offendable will take you so far, because the fact is that every day, every month, every day this house doesn't sell, every time this real estate agent's expectations aren't met, is a day that you become a more attractive opportunity, a more attractive solution. And if you don't take offense to the initial rejection and you just keep showing up, I mean, that's how Dan got that beautiful wife of his.
I had to chase her down. I mean, the reality is she chased me down. But
I'm playing with you. I'm just playing with you.
There was a lot of competition.
I should have said that's how I got my beautiful wife, but it's a fact, right? Like you just have to keep following up. You got to keep going. You got to keep trying. And as long as you don't let that stop you, you will be so successful at. The second thing, the next piece of advice that I could give you is really double down on your numbers. Understand your numbers so well. Know them viscerally, right? Really, really understand them, and be able to have a conversation with another real estate agent so educatedly, like just with such confidence, that when you present your argument as to why this house is overpriced or why your offer is fair, that no matter what they say, that you were coming from a place of truth, that you were coming from a place of honesty, and that eventually they will come to understand that what you had to say was real and true. And as long as you understand that, as long as you can truly feel confident that you've taken the time to learn your numbers, then you will be the most powerful realtor that exists out there. Because I'll tell you, man, there's so few agents out there who spend the time. who spend the time. You know how many CMAs I've gotten from real estate agents that will take a subject house and then send me, say the subject house is built in 1950. They'll send me a comp that's built in 2000. My subject house will be a single story built in 1950, and the comp they'll send me is a 2-story built in 2006.
Wow.
Yeah,
They're
you know
not
how many
comparable.
times I've had, an agent say, "Oh, you can go up to 2 miles away from your property in order to find the comp," and they'll go and pick some house in a neighborhood full of mansions, and then try to justify value to me on this little house that's completely different from what they're trying to present the house to be. So just knowing that and understanding you're not going to pull the wool over any investor's eyes, and not to say that you ever would, but knowing that the more that you can speak confidently about numbers to your customers, the more they're going to respect you. And when you can say to an investor, the reason why I don't use this is the reason why I use these comps. I stayed within a quarter mile. I stayed in the same subdivision. I didn't cross any major roads. I stayed in the same property type. I stayed in the same build generation. So I didn't go plus or minus more than 5 years of construction away from our house. I kept my comp so tight that I know that if you renovate this house, it's going to be worth this much money. That's why you should buy it. Your investor will respect you. Your investor will trust you. And they will allow you to go out there and make millions of dollars with them because they'll know that somebody like you is rare.
That's amazing. Thank you. That's golden.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Now, Dejanay, it's up to you. Have any questions? Free.
While she's unmuting, there's another question. I don't know if you want to toss it in there afterward. Francis in the chat wants to know how to deal with squatters when the police won't help.
Eviction.
Go through the legal process. Do it the right way.
The only thing that you can do is evict. It's the only. I know it's probably not what you were hoping to hear, but you can't forcefully remove them. If the police are unwilling to get involved, then you have a civil matter. And if you have a civil matter, then you have to treat it as an eviction. In fact, if you forcefully remove them, change the locks, show up with some thugs, you will be legally responsible for unlawfully removing the occupant. So the best thing that you can do is understand that you're going to need to evict and price your offer accordingly. Tell your seller, listen, this is going to be a process. I'm going to have to hold this house. I'm going to need to evict these people. And there's very likely going to be some significant damage because of it. So because of that, I have to reduce my offer by however many thousands of dollars to insulate myself from this situation.
How would you say we build a beneficial relationship with investors that are kind of trying to push back on us?
So how do you build a beneficial relationship with an investor who's trying to push on you? So let me unpack the push on you part. So explain that. What's some of the ways that you're being pushed on?
I guess them say they don't want to sign an agreement or trying to not pay you.
Okay. So are you talking about a buyer broker agreement?
Yeah.
Okay. So Dejanay, I appreciate the question because I think I personally work with so many real estate agents that signing a buyer broker agreement with an agent is hard because I'll have 4 or 5 realtors send me houses every day, and so how can I rightfully sign a buyer broker with you knowing that I'm cheating on you? Right. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just that I do so much volume as an investor. I'm buying so many houses that you would never be able to satisfy my appetite. You just wouldn't. I've got to work with hundreds of people in order to meet the mandate of volume that my company requires. So I would, in your mind, you want to work with an investor that's so good that signing a buyer broker agreement with you is not an option. Think about that. If I'm an investor and I'm willing to sign a buyer broker agreement with you, that how low is my volume? I'm not doing a lot of deals. I can't be. If I'm willing to marry you, to work with only one realtor for 6 months, how could I possibly be doing a lot of business? How could I possibly be a serious person that could write millions of dollars in checks or wires? right? So you shouldn't be looking for an investor to sign a buyer broker with you. You should be looking for an investor that's so good, that's so powerful, that's doing so much business, they would never want to sign a buyer broker with you. Second, with respect to the fees, it's unacceptable for an investor not to want to pay their realtor. Unacceptable. So if you have an investor who's watching your pocket, who's counting your money, keep it pushing. That person is not a collaborative individual. That person does not respect how you feed your family. And that person is never going to respect how you feed your family or respect your profession. So you just keep moving from that person, because that's not your guy. That's not your gal. That person doesn't believe in the value exchange that happens between people who do business with each other. Right? That person doesn't get it. So they shouldn't be for you. Right? So if an investor who's worth their weight will always want to see you win, will always want to see you get paid, will always care about how you're going to make money. Now, I'll give you an example, right? Monique Walker, again, the lady that I spoke about, I've been doing business with her for over a decade. I've bought and sold hundreds of houses with her. Okay. Her and I work this way. The majority of her business comes from the following three lead sources. Number one, canceled listings. Number two, expired listings. Number three, probate deals. That's where 100% of her business comes from. Between the hours of 7 and 9 a.m. every morning, she calls every new canceled, every new expired, and every new probate deal that came available. Just 2 hours a day. Okay, that's all she does. What she says to each one of these people is, I have an investor who will pay me my commission, so you don't have to pay me. And I can present you with a net cash offer. If you're interested in seeing that number, let me know and I can have it to you by the end of the day. Now, how her and I work is because she's able to give a net offer to her sellers. Okay, I pay her commission. I'm the one who pays her commission. And you want to know what that amount is? Way more than 3%. What her and I do is we split what my assignment fee is going to be on the deal. So I show her exactly how much money I'm going to make, and then she gets 50% of that. So oftentimes we can make $25,000, $30,000 on a $100,000 house. If she was going to get 3% on that house, she would have made $3,000. But because I'm wholesaling it and I made 30 grand, now she's making 15,000 instead of 3,000. It's 5 times what she would have made. Right. So I say that, Dejeuner, to show you that you can be creative on how you get compensated with an investor, that you don't have to just sit in the 3% bucket. You don't have to sit there. You can talk to your investor and say, listen, my job is to bring you incredible opportunities. What I want from you is to compensate me accordingly. See how that plays out. If they don't like it, keep it moving.
Love that. And I think it's important that agents reciprocate that too, right? Because you shouldn't be counting what's happening in the investors' pockets either. If they were able to do a good enough job, you get paid what you want, and they make $50,000 on the assignment fee. That shouldn't offend you. That should encourage you at the quality of the investor that you're working with.
Agreed. Yeah. Realtors that are in my life are so valuable because first, they prospect, right? Second, they present me with opportunities that are valuable. Third, they can do research. They can help me understand what I'm looking at or what the numbers are if I'm not at my desk or if I'm out into the world, right? So I see them for their prospecting. I see them for their knowledge. I love them for their knowledge. I love them for their trustworthiness. On top of that, when I'm working with a seller, for instance, because I do a lot of off-market deals, but deals that are represented by agents off-market. So what a real estate agent really provides me in that situation is a buffer. They act as my buffer between me and the homeowner, or me and the seller. It's one of the most valuable things in a deal for me as a cash buyer is having that real estate agent in there to help with contracts, to help with explaining the process to the seller, to explaining what's going to happen to a homeowner so that they're not I'm not there stuck having to educate the homeowner on what's going to happen next, right? Beyond that, I think, aside from education, aside from helping me with numbers, aside from presenting me with opportunities, I think that another thing that a real estate agent brings to me is the relationship, is repeat business, loyalty. I can't get that with a homeowner. How many homeowners have I bought multiple houses from? Zero. How many agents have I done multiple deals with? Hundreds.
Powerful.
Hundreds. So the value that a realtor brings to me is their relationship. This deal isn't just today. This deal could be, our relationship could last 10 years, 20 years. And I always say that I could quit my job. I could quit doing what I do. I could stop being an influencer. I could stop television. I could stop prospecting. I could stop coaching. I could stop everything. And if I only answered three people's calls, I'd make over $1 million a year just answering 3 real estate agents' phone calls. That's it. I would make more than $1 million a year. Think about that.
That is powerful.
That's so powerful. Oh my gosh.
I think the thing is, Jamil, is people overthink the what this takes, right? Like the last 2 points you just made, if people just took that and realized that if they develop the right relationships, one, how many multiple houses have you purchased from a seller? None. How many from an agent? Like that by itself. And then if you take that and you multiply that by 2 or 3 relationships, and you just go deep and you work hard and you establish that relationship, you can transform your grandchildren's life off of that work, not just yours.
Look, just for instance, right? I mean, I don't think I can show you this because I don't think it's going to translate on the screen. I'll try though. Okay. Can you guys see my text messages, or is this all too, it's too bad. It's not going to work.
Washed out. Yeah.
Okay. Too washed out. Since yesterday at 5:04 PM. Okay. Monique has sent me 1, 2, 3, 4 addresses. Since 5 p.m. yesterday, she sent me 4 addresses, of which I've given her cash numbers on 4 houses. One of these is going to turn into a deal.
Wow.
I didn't call her. She doesn't even say good morning to me. Our relationship is it's like she sends me address, I send her price. She sends me address, I send her price. It's not like we operate like a finely tuned machine. It's beautiful.
Basically, I'm wholesaling. I've been wholesaling for a little while now, and I've done some work with a few people out of Pace Morby's, sub-2 group. So seeing you on here is really cool. And I would kick myself if I didn't ask this, so I'm going to ask it. If you have any opportunity in your wheelhouse, if you need help with dispositions, acquisitions, if you need somebody to make your sandwich in the morning or for lunch, anything of the sort where I could be in your mind a little bit, I'd love to have that opportunity. So I would just want to.
You're talking to Daniel, right? Not me.
So,
I don't eat sandwiches.
I'm talking to either of you. I'm talking to either of you.
Okay.
I'm always looking for big, other players to sync up with. And like I said, I'm with a few people right now from Sean Perry's group and from Pace Morby's, and thought this would be a cool opportunity to see if I could make more connections. So.
Well, let me start off by saying thank you for that. I would love to work with you. So where do you work? What market are you in?
I'm doing nationwide right now, but I'm relocating down to Central Florida, mostly for the market, but a few other perks. So I'm doing that next month. But right now I started my own business back in January, and have been running ever since, and started trying to get my own network going, making my own Instagram around my journey, learning as well. And I've been really fortunate to get some pretty good connections just by networking and reaching out and asking questions and hopping into different groups and whatnot.
Daphne, are you in the sub 2 community?
So I'm going to be next month. I actually
Awesome.
just talked to the guy a few days ago to join Sub 2 because now I'm connected with so many people, and I have one of my deals that I pulled in. One of the Sub 2 students actually helped me because it just wasn't a wholesale deal, and I just didn't have the education to make it a creative. So I pulled somebody in to help wrap that for me, and I'm like, I need to dive into this. So I just met with them this past week, and I'm gonna be joining.
Love it. So Daphne, what I would say is my team would love to do business with you. I've got deals available in Florida. I buy deals in Florida. We've got inventory that we sell. So if you've got buyers and you want to disposition some of our properties, you can jump in. If you've got deals available and you want me to buy them, jump in. So the best way that we can connect is send me a DM on IG and say, hey, Jamil, we were just on the live together, or we were just on the Zoom together. And that will help you get past the gatekeepers in my Instagram. I will connect you to my teams in Florida, and we'll do some business together.
That would be awesome. Thank you so much.
And one of the best things that you can do is join that community. Sub 2 community is powerful. They're wonderful people. And when the time is right, also take a look at the Astro community as well, because we're a really solid community of wholesalers that would love to work with you. So, you are in the right place, talking to the right people.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely plan on joining your community and the Sub 2 community this summer. So yeah, that sounds great. I'll send over the message now, and I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your knowledge and everything. This has been awesome.
And also, I like
too.
You a mayo or a Miracle Whip guy, Jamil?
Bro, I used to be a mayonnaise guy, but I've been on a health kick lately, and one of the things that helped me lose the weight that I've lost was I substituted my lunch, which used to be a sandwich, for a salad. And just that one change helped me lose like 60 pounds, dude. It was crazy.
You know, it's funny. Like 2 weeks ago, I saw you on a live. I was like, holy crap, Jamil looks good, man. You could tell you look a lot better.
Yeah, I feel better. It's not just the look. It's just, I have more energy. I'm can move around faster, and I can go longer in the day. It's beautiful how you thin people feel.
Remember when it was like being 17 years old and just having the first time Justin texted me, he just sent me this really, really long message, and all I saw was just energy. I'm like, I remember when I had that much energy for no reason whatsoever. So savor it while you got it, Justin, because once you get a little bit older, you gotta eat different, and you got to take all these things just to get halfway where you are.
I mean, the fact that you're even doing this at your age right now is mind-boggling. When I was 17 years old, bro, I wasn't thinking about real estate. My goal wasn't to talk to Pace Morby or Jamil. My goal was I had such dumb goals. I wasn't thinking about my future. You should be so proud of yourself, bro. You should be so happy for the way that your parents have raised you, and the ambition that you have in your heart to go out there and do something with your life. It's beautiful to see, man. It really is. And I can't wait to see who you're going to be in 10 years.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to connect, and I'm just grateful that what I set out to accomplish the first day I ever started is actually coming to light. My goal was to connect people and to provide value, just for free, right? It's just something I like talking to people. I like communicating. I like networking, and that all started, right? That all started just a couple months ago. And I remember one of my goals was just like, if I'm gonna make a community, if I'm gonna make a networking group, I would like to provide as much value as I can, right? I have my own small business, but my main thing is trying to just really focusing on networking. And just by hearing Daphne and you guys already being partners and all that, right? Talking about potential partnerships, it's like I'm accomplishing what I set out for this networking group to accomplish. is building connections. And the fact that I've been connecting investors with real estate agents, right? And it's only building my knowledge as well. It's just accomplishing more of what my goals would truly was. I just glad that it took me 3 years just to get where I'm at. Talking to Jamil, right? Talking to, oh my god, talking to you, which is what it was one of my my goals and my daily. I had this thing called the daily affirmation. I write down my goals. I journal my journey every single day, right? Top goals I want to accomplish, and it's just being able to cross one out of the bucket list earlier than I expected is really, I don't want to say the word, but really freaking amazing.
Well, we're all proud of you, bro. And you can see exactly how your heart is attracting many of your desires to your life. So with that said, what's next? You're a powerful person. Things are happening for you. So pick a big target. One of the things I learned from Grant Cardone actually is his targets are obnoxiously big. So big. And I think, more of us need to believe in ourselves enough to choose big targets. Choose a big target. Don't shortchange yourself. In 2008, I lost everything. In 2008, Grant lost everything. So we both started at zero. Okay. In 2022, my goal in 2008 was to make back the $12 million I lost. Okay. So guess what happened? I made it back. His goal was to make $1 billion. Guess what happened? He made $1 billion. Who effed up? My goal wasn't big enough. My goal was too small. I learned that. I learned that lesson the hard way. Could have been a billionaire already. So, keep that in mind. Choose a big target. Choose a big target and just stay looking at your feet, because you'll climb the mountain. But if you look up at the mountain, it might be overwhelming. So watch your feet. Watch your feet. One step in front of the next.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day.
Of course. Well, thank Dan, man. Thank Dan. Dan was really inspired by you, bro. He reached out to me this morning and he said, listen, I know you're busy. I know you got a ton of things to do. But there's this guy. He's a young kid. It would mean the world to him. In fact, he didn't even say it would mean something to you. It meant something to Dan. Okay. Dan was like, hey, I'm talking to this young high school kid right now. He's asking me about real estate agents. And, I think about you as I was talking to him. And I thought about, how this is what you really do. And, this young cat, it took time out of his prom to talk to me to set this up yesterday. So Dan really put that out there. He took some time out of his day to send me a message to try to get me here. So Dan, appreciate you. I'm happy to have been a part of this. It was fun, man. It was fun meeting you guys, fun talking to all of you. And Justin, I wish you a lot of success. You're definitely in the right path, and connecting with great people like Dan over here is definitely going to open up a lot of doors for you.
I said this earlier in the first half of this when I was talking with Justin, is you guys do not recognize the power of who you collaborate with, because you don't know who they will connect you with. You don't know what doors that will open for you. And the fact that you're starting at this young of an age, the sky is literally the limit. Your mindset is literally the limit, bro. So we wish you nothing but the best. For everybody who's watching this thing live, this is not my podcast. This is the Amazing Justin's podcast. I'm going to make sure I include the links below for you to get the entire thing. You missed more than 60% of this. So you guys will be able to have access to the entire thing. And I really hope that if for nothing else, you guys take away from this two things. One, start today, because you have no clue what your momentum will create and open up for you. Two, be open to the collaborations, even if it's not something you thought you would do, because you never know who those people will become in your life and who they will connect you with. It's not just about you. It's about the people you will impact and the people that are going to come from your family 3 generations from now. That's the power of this industry. So Justin, I really, really appreciate you inviting me onto this podcast. Jamil, I love you, brother. Just the impact you make never ceases to inspire. And for those of you guys who are watching, make sure you look for the link below and go see the whole thing. Have a good one, guys.
Later.
Have a